On my own, no fixer. I'm gon' ball, no picker. That I ate doors, they live for. Talking on my back, go figure. Whole team eats from splitter. Never was the one to go flicker. No face, no case, no pictures. Full place, big stakes, my dinner. Flip that, Canal Street. Flip back. Last week, old money. This week, new racks. Never buy none more. If I can't afford to gift wrap, stunning in your foreign car. You keep riding rental tax. Heard you roll the other lean, we are not the same. Couple thousand in my pocket, this pocket shit. Rubber bands on my arm, this is not for play. I put 20 on the crib while you cop a chain. I know they hated or love it. You know I love when they hate it. Last year was living basic. Haters on the other side. 3 up, read between the lines. Know I got some angels with me. Made it through some evil times. Late night on some demon time. Pour the Sprite, I need a line. I can't see the line. Freeze time. Brainstorm, you can assume with your chains on. I can see none with the lights off. Cap, you been the main one. Coolin' when I got my mains on. Show money, but those aren't the same ones. I been told you that it was game on. Been winning since I was on game one. Go. Telling me how to live like you made me. Go a dog, man, I blame you made me. Money longer than a grown-up baby. Get crazy in a new Mercedes. Thinking that's 550. 5 seats, fit the kids in there. Prawn steak on my dinner plate. Nike tag for the dinner wear. Flex up, never playing dress up. Never gonna let up. Never, ever set up. Play on my fam, get wet up. Go, won't let up. Never, ever. Haters on the other side. 3 up, read between the lines. Know I got some angels with me. Made it through some evil times. Late night on some demon time. Pour the Sprite, I need a line. I can't see the line. Freeze time.
All this time, I've been feeling hopeless till you came around. All this time, you're the only reason I'm not chasing highs. What is love? Lately I've been wondering just what is love? I don't know. No one ever showed me I've been on my own.
If you don't speak, then you won't get spoken to. People only see you when you up, then they notice you. Trying to be a legend, create lines that's quotable. Only the real shall last, and I only know a few. People when they feelings always acting emotional. Ain't about a check, then it ain't negotiable. Gotta show respect to the people that's posting you. Soon to be on posters posted up like the older dudes.
Now we aging like fine wine, how we supposed to do? Peep the shade on the timelines, this time posted cool.
And good morning. We got audio? We're good? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, hello. Welcome to today's edition of Free Salon Education Live. I'm Brian Hare, coming to you with a fun color class. We're going live right now. We're on Minerva's Facebook, Free Salon Education's Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching, thank you. Please jump in on the comments. That's what keeps this fun. I like chit-chatting back and forth, chatting with everyone, answering any questions you could possibly have. Preferably about what we're doing today, but you know what? We're open. That's what this is about. So jumping in. Today I wanted to, again, do something that I'm sort of seeing in the salon right now, what's happening in my chair with my guests. And we're transitioning from summer into fall here in the Northern Hemisphere. So one of the gentler ways that I'm doing that with my color guests, I wanted to bring to you here today. So it kind of also doubles as like a reverse balayage kind of finished result. What it is taking somebody who's gotten really light, whether it be from the weather or over bleaching or whatever the excuse is, and just kind of bringing it back down, getting it ready for that cooler weather, just giving it a different yet still dimensional look that is just going to be a nice soft transition into a new season. I'm doing it with the root touch-up that so many of our guests come in with to get those grays covered. And it's just going to be a little bit of a technique on how to sort of make that nice deep dimension happen without completely losing all of that lightness that they got to that keeps it kind of fun and exciting. We're going to be working with Paul Mitchell's Crema line today. It works, you work with it like a permanent color. We got a great consistency, but you're still going to get a demi-permanent result, which I like, especially when dealing with covering over dimension, because I still like to see dimension, but it still just sort of softens it and mutes it down a little bit. Yes, you can do this with permanent color. Just understand that you're going to get a slightly different end result. That's up to you. Use your knowledge. I'm just giving you some tools. The haircut that we're going with, this was the mannequin that I chose. So the technique is going to be a little bit more geared towards this, but we'll hit on it on how it would be different for like longer hair or layered hair or anything like that. But this one is going to be catered a little bit more to the haircut that we're working on, because that's how color works. So we're going to put her away for a minute and show you. I got her started because we know how to do a root retouch. If you don't, then this isn't the video that you need to be watching. You need to go back to beauty school. So we just went through. I do think it's important to work with the part that they actually wear when doing this technique, because we are going to be creating a look much like highlighting, but we're going to be highlighting by creating negative space. So going off of the part is going to be the easiest way to make sure that you know what this is going to look like at the end. So down the part, got my quadrants with the back, everything's ready, good to go. Now that you've got the roots on, I'm going to go ahead and start creating that negative space. Now for this haircut, I'm taking this mannequin who has been lightened all over. Let's just say that she, between the summer and some highlights and everything, has gotten very, very light all the way down. So we want to create a look where the sun has created a dimensional lighter look on the outside, but still darker within this haircut, this bob per se. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out everything from the parietal ridge up, because when you're dealing with a sun lightened effect, most of that is going to happen from that ridge up. So by sectioning this away and dealing with this at the end, it's going to help give us that nice natural highlighted look. Because everything underneath this parietal ridge, I'm going to go ahead and color roots to ends with my darker color. So we'll just make this just chill out of our way. So all of this, now we're just going to run that color through. Again, I like working with the crema just because it is so easy to work with. It's not too thin, like a gel consistency. So I have a little bit more control as I'm working through sections like this. Want to make sure you're not taking sections so big that the color doesn't penetrate, because we are going for a pretty significant color shift here. I've chosen a level 6. It's the 6NB from the Crema line. So you want to make sure that you're not having any little skips in the color there, because that's going to suck to put all this work in. And then when you go to wash it, you find little pockets where it's still light. That's not what we're going for. We want neater and cleaner. So again, if you do a good job on the front end, you don't have to work as hard on the back end to convince them that it looks good. Because we've all been there. The only time that I might change up full roots to ends in these front sections, because again, think of it as you're creating a highlighted effect, but by only putting the dark in. Think about where you would be putting highlights if you were doing a full-on highlight with this. So I'm going to treat these sections as such. I'm going to take a diagonal back section, because that's pretty much how I would take it if I was doing balayage. So in holding my section, I would be lightening up towards the face real high down through the ends and leaving negative space back here. But since I don't have the bleach with me, I'm just going to create that negative space. Because at the end, I'm going to throw a little bit of bleach on the money pieces up front to create a real bright look. So this is going to give me a highlight that's not as bright as my brightest highlight will be. It's what you call dimension. Again, get that last section. I think it's really important when you're doing a technique like this. I don't know if you can see it hanging on my fabulous Minerva table here, but I like to keep a towel handy because you really want to keep your hands clean in between these sections. We're doing a lot of mashing and molding with our hands to make sure that that color goes where you want it to go. And the towel is going to make sure that color doesn't go where I don't want it to go. So we'll just snag this last little section here. Whoops. Okay. Our little front quadrant, we're going to treat it the same way as the other side. Go in diagonally, and then create the negative space by just hitting that back end and leaving all that out to create that dimension. Cute, right? See where we're going with that? You see it. It's visual. It's a visual medium, this YouTube. All right, so now we've got that done. How you would change that if this was not a bob and a longer haircut is basically just do what we just did and think about it as though you were putting highlights in, and then just do the opposite of that. If it's a long layered haircut, think about, okay, maybe you want the ends to be a little bit lighter, so don't run that color all the way through the end. If you want highlights around the face, create those highlights with that negative space. Just be mindful of what that specific haircut is asking for as far as the natural color goes. This is supposed to be a really natural look, so it should be pretty easy to figure out where you would need to put that negative space to keep the natural look going. Okay, so now we're up above that parietal ridge where really we are going to now start to put in a bunch of lightness, but you don't just want to leave it blank, because if you were to just leave this, then you've got colored roots and light ends. That's a fine look. That's not the look that we're doing today. So I've got probably a couple sections worth on this head. This back quadrant back here, I'm going to divide that into two, just based on the size. With your client's density, everything is going to really predict. I can't tell you exactly how many sections you're going to do on every person, but for this one, I want to split this into two. So this is going to be my lightest highlight up top, so I want to create a decent little backdrop for it underneath. I'm just going to bring the color out a little bit further than the root actually is, making sure that there's plenty of color on that section, because now I'm just going to use my fingers and drag it down. And that's going to soften it for me so that when I go in and finish it right at the very end, it's all going to marry together really, really nicely. Leaving those ends a little bit lighter. And now for the section above it, I'm going to do a similar technique, but I'm going to leave more of the ends out because this should be even lighter. But we're still on the back of the head, so I prefer to see just my ends light. Can you change that? Of course. I'm just showing you what I'm doing for this particular model. Again, give that soft, smooth little transition there. I have a question. That's good. Diana's question, I can just read it. Diana asked a question to stylist, how long did it take you to feel confident? I still don't. I'm just kidding. It's just practice. It doesn't matter. There are plenty of things that don't make me feel confident because I don't do them that often. So don't worry, if you're not feeling it yet, it'll come, and it's one of those things that you won't even know that you feel confident until all of a sudden you do. You don't just like wake up one day and go, oh, well now it's confident. Every time a guest leaves your chair with a smile on your face, it's going to make you feel a little bit better and a little bit more capable until finally you just realize, oh yeah, I do know what I'm doing. But that's a great question. All right. So I did the same thing on the other back quadrant. As we move into the front is where I'm going to be doing a little bit of what I just did in the back, and then a little bit of negative space highlighting. So my first section, I'm gonna do like I did in the back and have this just be a full-on low light with lighter ends. See, it's not quite dragged through there. But then the next section above it is where I'm going to create a highlight up front on the hairline by using negative space, because we're getting real close to where the money piece is gonna go. So,
Good question here
that's where I like to keep the dimension. What's question? What do we got?
on the screen. Tamara.
So if there's a lot of gray, that's actually how I started with this, was doing gray coverage and then realizing that I needed to address what had been lightened. So I would be using permanent color to cover the grays at the root. I'm assuming that this is somebody where you've already covered the rest of the hair and they just have gray roots. Otherwise, you might want to jump into, that's a different color process if they're roots to ends gray. This might not be the chosen thing, but if you're just touching up their roots, then you can go in and do exactly this, but just use a permanent color to cover those grays. Good morning, Mobile, Alabama. Same thing, just creating that softness with a little piece up front that I'm not really highlighting yet, but still just dragging that down so that my ends are gonna be a little bit lighter. Because at the very end of this, what you're not gonna see is I'm gonna do this whole thing, and then once it's all been processed and washed, if you're a little bit nervous about it all marrying together, say you have a significant difference between what this is and what this is, and you're worried about it marrying, the best thing you can do is overlay the whole thing. Get your favorite gloss, glaze, whatever you want to call it, and then just lay that over everything once this has been washed out, and it will just really help to make sure that it all blends. So I have a 6 on the root. Let's say this is a 10 on the hair right now, so you want to find a color that's going to be in between. Let's say I want to really marry all this together. Maybe a nice 8 would be great, because an 8's going to bring this down without making it disappear, but also make these ends blend into this nice deep 6 that we're creating at the root. Make sense? Actually, I'm going to leave that out. I'm just going to get this last side here. Same thing that we did over there. I'm going to create a nice little smudged root. And then for the top one, I'm going to leave that out. And then just create. By leaving that, because I plan on highlighting this, so I'm leaving that to sit in between. So it'll be right behind a nice bold highlight. Therefore, it's just going to give even more dimension to everything that lays around the face. So once you get that on, if you really want to amp this up just a little bit more, which I recommend doing, I've got a little bit of balayage lightener here. My favorite, I got Skylights from Paul Mitchell. Super easy to work with. Smells good. Works great. Lifts beautifully. Boop. I was like just guessing about how little powder I could take, considering I'm only painting like one highlight. So I don't want to waste it. Stuff's like gold. Perfect. Just a little bit there. Load up my paddle. And we're going to jump in. And these front pieces, I want just even brighter. Because you're going to be processing the roots and they're in charge of how long this highlight is going to sit, think about how much saturation you need. If you're using a permanent color, this is going to sit for 35 full minutes or however long your color process is. then maybe go a little easy on the saturation there, because as we've gone over in previous classes, the thicker the saturation, the harder the lift, the higher the lift, the bleachier the lift. So if it's only, like right now I'm using the crema, it doesn't process for the full 35. So I'm gonna wanna go in there with a much more saturation. I wanna make sure that I can't see a single hair through this highlight, because that's what's going to make it lift the highest I can get it in the shortest amount of time. And this is just going to really amp up that dimension, because I'm not focused on getting it all the way through and super saturating, which is going to give a little bit of a deeper backdrop to that highlight. And so that's just gonna sit, process however long that hair is supposed to process. Now, when you look at the back, you can start to see what we've done and where we're going with this, because we've got that deeper root. You can see where we just sort of smudged it through with our hands. It's not quite as intense, and then these ends are gonna be lighter. Then, to really get nuts, we've got that super brightness around the face, so that when this is all done, should you choose to overlay it, you're gonna have a whole lot of dimension going on, a whole lot of stories. This mannequin was actually the same level of blonde as the model I just used. I went with a level 7 for her root just because I wanted to see where that lived. And then, as you see, we've got depth throughout the inside of this haircut that wasn't there before. And now it's got a highlighted effect over the top and through the ends, much like this haircut would have if it was lightened just from the sun on someone that wasn't getting a root retouch. And then when you come back around, you see it transition to lighter and lighter as it gets up to the face. I left more of the ends out as we moved into this longer hair. And then you've got this, which is a nice bright highlight right up in the face, so that it definitely looks like a full dimensional look here. Do you love it? Do you? Very cool, very salon friendly, and very realistic. I do it right now, this season. I've got a couple coming in today that I'm gonna be doing this on. So I really hope that this is something that works for you in your salon. It shouldn't add really any time, except for, you know, the time that it'll take you to mix up that bleach for the money piece right there. It shouldn't add any time to whatever you're planning on processing, but it'll add so much more value to what you're doing, because it's a full look on someone that thought they were just getting a root retouch. So there you go. Let's see, what do we got for some questions? Could you highlight the other front pieces? Of course, you can highlight whatever you want. You could go through if you feel like you want to brighten the ends up a little bit more. Because I was working with these mannequins that were so light, I didn't feel the need to. But on a darker canvas, which most people are going to be, of course, you know, whatever, create that negative space. But if there's a couple of areas that you want to pop up that blonde, that lighter space as well, that's just going to add even more dimension to the look. So by all means, go for it. Do your thing. Let's see. Everyone is being super sweet. I used 40 developer. Whenever I do balayage lightener, I always use 40, especially if it's something that you're just going to process for a short amount of time. But really, I just always use it and then change the level of lift to be expected with my saturation. It's just the easiest way to predict it in my book, I think. Do I foil your hair for your blonde? Like for for me?
Yeah.
Oh no, I just bleach the hell out of my hair and kill my scalp and then let it grow in. I will probably do some foils when it gets a little longer and I feel the need to do it. On longer hair, could you do a reverse balayage? Yes. I was thinking about it as I was like setting up this morning. I was like, this kind of also is a reverse balayage. So yes, it's the same idea. You're just creating negative space and leaving what's there. So whether it's a refresh or reverse balayage, whatever you want to call it, That's what it is. What should we do to remove yellow pigment? Toning. I think we have a video on toning somewhere on. Download the Free Salon Education app from freesaloneducation.com.
Yeah.
FSE Now app. Check out our catalog of videos. There's lots and lots of helpful things on there, including a video on toning that will help when you have yellows, golds, whatever in the hair that you want to get rid of. So there you go. How about that? Well, that's not a shameless plug. That's just a straight up plug. Can we zigzag? Yeah. Especially if crocodiles are chasing you. Or is it alligators?
Either one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you zigzag? Of course. Do whatever you want. Did shadow roots? I did.
I wanted to see you read that one. I did.
I did.
Let's see.
Matt's here too.
I am. I'm trying to read the questions, but I don't.
He's getting to some good ones.
I know. This is a good one. They're all good ones.
Charge for technique, just for the product used. I mean, like me personally, if I was doing this, if I needed to mix more color to pull through, depending on how much hair they have, I would charge for any extra color that I brought in, as well as for the highlights. You know, we charge, by the foil, if you're just thinking about it like that. So if it's balayage, that would probably be achieved with a couple of foils right there. So you tack on a couple of extra bucks for that, but you're not trying to rake them over the coals. You want to be honest with it. Like, I mixed up the normal amount of color that I would mix up to do a root retouch, what I would charge for somebody on this today, and I was able to get the whole look done without making any more color go into that bowl. So that's one of those things where you're adding value to what you do for your guest, because you're able to give them something like this and, oh no, like I was just able to do it. I'm not sitting here wringing you out for every penny that I possibly can, which is what makes them trust you, which is what builds your relationship long term with them.
I think maybe we should do a class coming up that is so specific, just literally getting yellow out of hair.
All right. Yeah, I'm into
It
it.
seems like a question, like if we just get very specific with it, not overall toning, but literally like
The yellows.
the different yellows. Yeah.
Let's do that next week.
Okay.
There, now I don't have to think about it.
Yes.
We have lots of yellow mannequins around here,
I know,
so
that's what I was thinking.
it's going to be a fun week for me.
Thank you, Crystal.
Oh, yeah. She the one
Use
from Mobile?
permanent on the roots? No.
I did not use permanent on the roots this time, but I do on my guests when I'm covering grays.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
I think we're good. Let's do
Little ending for everyone.
hang on, let me first make you unblurry.
I'm best seen through blurry vision.
All right.
All right. So there you go, guys. You've got a great... I didn't like that. All right, so here you go. You've got your nice shadowed root. We created negative space to get a really great highlighted effect without actually highlighting this whole head. It gives you great coverage. It gives you dimension. It shows off some of that great lightness that you've achieved, be it through bleach or through sun or beach, whatever. And your guest is going to leave super, super happy with this really great look. So thank you guys for joining me. I'm here every week. Go to freesaloneducation.com, download the FSE Now app so that you can follow along, jump in on these classes, ask lots of questions, check out other people in our community, share more knowledge. That's what it's all about. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you next week.
You want them to follow you on Instagram?
Fine. Yeah, check me out on Instagram too, I guess. Also, my name is Hairstyle, H-A-I-R-E style. And then obviously Free Salon Education as well. All right, thanks.
love and try to make it new. You can't fight it when it feels so true. You drive me crazy like no one else. The final moment for our